and FHWA wrote and entered into what we call a project programmatic agreement, or project PA. And that agreement has stipulations for completing the archaeology and what happens if more resources are discovered during the studies. And the project cannot be commenced until the archaeology is completed. So essentially the project PA, it acknowledges archaeology continues and the project can keep going with its permits. And if something comes up for archaeology, we have a method in place for dealing with that. And that is the archaeology update. I will pass it back to
That's me.
Jeff.
Thank you, Caitlin. I'm going to talk about two topics here. One is acquisitions and easements, and the next is about traffic. First thing to talk about for acquisitions, so based on the project, proposed project, we are building a new bridge and new roads off alignment. So the need for new town roadway rights-of-way is inevitable. When we looked at the original layout of the project, we were trying to mitigate the impacts to the private properties. So we've laid out the new roads in a way that we think is, looking at what, try to minimize those impacts. There's a couple things I want to point out with that. One, just starting at the south end of the project here on the left side. So Thompson Road today currently bifurcates one large field that's owned by the same property owner. So the new Thompson Road alignment, when we were moving it to align with the new bridge, we wanted to basically push it all the way to the north to basically reopen this field so it wouldn't be separated by a roadway today. And the second major consideration in terms of acquisitions was looking at, on the north side of the project, the new Jewett Road connector is built basically parallel to this existing fence line. Again, trying to minimize how much we impact this field, not creating a, basically splitting the field into two. So those were two considerations that we made in terms of the project details that would minimize impacts to acquisitions. All right, the next thing I'm going to talk about is traffic, both during and after construction. So this is just a slide of the existing condition today. We've looked at a lot. And today, Thompson Road and Jewett Road both of those bridges are open. But when we start construction, we're just going to call this phase one, just conceptual construction phases here, where a contractor would be constructing all of the new roads essentially outside of the existing town highways. So this is really good in terms of impact to the traveling public because we'll be doing all of our construction while leaving Thompson Road and Jewett Road open throughout that phase. After the new bridge and new roadways are constructed, basically flip that around and close the old roads and old bridge and put all the traffic on the new bridge while we demolish and remove the old bridges and roadways. So this phase of construction, there will be a little bit of coordination as we connect to some of the existing driveways, but generally speaking, again, very minimal impact to the traveling public during construction. And in phase two and in the final condition, I'm going to talk briefly about what the traffic condition would be. There's going to be obviously a new intersection with Vermont Route 103 here at the new Thompson Road. And this intersection is, one thing we really like about that, where the new bridge is being located is, you can see the bridge and river are much further away from Vermont 103 than the two existing bridges are today. And this is important because we've talked a lot about the river hydraulics and the desire to have the bridge be a longer span and a higher elevation over the river. Well, those two things don't really go together if the bridge is really close to the road, because from a transportation perspective, we want that roadway intersection to be mostly level. So if the bridge is really high and really close to the road, we've got a steep road at the intersection. So we like this layout for that reason. The bridge being farther away from the road allows us to come over a high bridge and then gradually drop the road grade down to have a more level intersection for when people come to a stop. There will be a stop sign for Thompson Road as it meets Route 103, but still free-flowing traffic on Route 103. And for the new intersection with Jewett Road and Thompson Road, there will be a stop sign for traffic coming southbound on Jewett Road, but no stop control for the new Thompson Road. And that is how we will manage traffic during and after construction. And with that, turn it over to Brad.
Thanks, Jeff. So with the discussion of the various resources we've looked at here, we come to summary slide. And here we've got, we're going to look at it in two different configurations. The first one, importantly, is the effects of the project that are effectively looked at as being temporary effects of the project during construction. Not surprisingly, there's adverse effects to a variety of different resources, and the key, color key for this is red being adverse, the gold X's being no effect on resources. Not surprising for complex transportation projects to have a variety of temporary impacts on resources. However, just because they're all red doesn't necessarily mean they're all the same intensity of impact, and in fact, some of them may not occur when we take a conservative approach to evaluating effects of the projects. For instance, there's a potential adverse effect on wildlife. That may or may not happen. It depends on conditions within the Williams River. When we're working there, we'll be taking steps to mitigate effects of sedimentation of the project through an erosion prevention and sediment control plan. Similarly, for surface waters, same thing. With respect to water quality, again, we'll be taking measures to minimize impacts on that. So again, a variety of different adverse effects. A number of them aren't affected at all, as noted in gold. But the key thing here is that a lot of these, with the completed project, in fact, 6 of these 10 actually become beneficial effects. So switching over to the completed project, or the operational phase of the project, again, we have our same color coding, no effect is gold, red is adverse effect. As Caitlin noted, archaeological resources are pending, so we have a gray circle for those. But beneficial effects are now introduced by these green circles. So starting with the adverse effects, and for that we have 3 discrete ones. Farmlands, because of the net loss of some farmland, as we've noted, there would be an adverse effect to farmland. That is mitigated to some degree by the abandonment of Thompson Road and Jewett Road. Wetlands, as we've noted, Jeff just articulated, as well as Carolyn, that we've pushed the road as far west as we could to optimize the farmable land on the project site, but that actually introduces impacts that are unavoidable on wetlands because that's where they're located. Again, these are permittable impacts through state and federal regulatory programs, and then acquisitions, as Jeff also noted. So with that, though, we do have a suite of what we're calling effects, and this can happen under NEPA, that are both adverse and beneficial. The first one we'll talk about is visual aesthetics. As you can see, it has both symbols associated with it. That really gives a nod to sort of eye of the beholder in some respects, what a personal sentiment might be on the project after it's completed. So for instance, the abandonment of 2 river crossings. Maybe for people traveling through the corridor, that represents an opportunity to appreciate the landscape more, or the Williams River itself. Alternately, it could be that for some folks, the removal of a bridge is the removal of something that's harkens back to the working landscape. So again, sort of eye of the beholder with respect to visual aesthetics. For those living in the corridor, of course, or living in the study area, there will be a removal of vegetation, change in traffic patterns, things like that, which could be perceived as a potential adverse effect on aesthetics. Over time, that could be mitigated by vegetation growing back over the corridor, or by a landscaping plan, which could be carried out. So again, visual aesthetics depends, and over time could be modified by, again, vegetation growing in the corridor. So social and economic considerations, you can see there too, that there is potential adverse effect as well as a beneficial effect of the project. From an adverse effect standpoint, there will be a change potentially for those using the corridor for farming in terms of changing operational practices, trying to appreciate those, and we're getting some public input that could help minimize that effect. On the flip side, you do have, as Jeff just pointed out, and this was important in selecting the proposed action, the enhanced safety of having one crossing. You have better line of sight both ways on Vermont 103. and you can achieve standard geometry for the intersection there. So enhanced safety, realistically, and actually the perception of enhanced safety too. And then moving on to the variety of improvements. Traffic, I just touched upon some of those in terms of the new configuration, Evermont 103. Surface waters, Robert did a good job explaining how we'll be improving the flood surface, flood storativity within the study area. And lastly, hazardous and contaminated materials, and this goes also to the notion of enhanced safety. If you had an accident, for instance, at the bridge location now, you have 2 conflict points. Could be a spill of hazardous material in close proximity to the Williams River. The new configuration sets back the bridge from the Williams River, but more importantly, you have a safer intersection. So that's a lot to digest. There's all of this, of course, is summarized in the EA, so I encourage you to have a look at those. With that, I think we're at that part where we'll be hearing public comments, and to set the stage for that, I'll hand it over to Aaron.
Okay, thanks, Brad. So this is the time to offer public comments. I'll just kind of reiterate a couple things. Small crowd, so feel free to kind of talk and get what you want out there. Please come up to the microphone so that it is recorded through the Zoom meeting. And we're not really in like a question and answer type of a format. It's more of comments or questions that you'd like to see answered within the environmental assessment for the team. If there's some basic questions, you know, we're happy to answer those, but really this is about the kind of the public testimony and the public comments that go on the record for the environmental assessment. So does anybody have anything? Yeah, come on up. Say your name first.
Peter Hutkins. You showed us the FEMA map, and then you said you had done a study. Is your flood study included in your?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Is the wetland delineation study, is that map in there as well? Yes. Also on there. So, okay. No, those are just the two. The other question would be one that I brought up before. It's the fact that now you're bisecting that field. And when you do your study, you're going to find you need a culvert, but I need to be able to get water and electricity across the relocated Jewett Road in order to use that. The field that's out by 103, that's owned by the same owner. I guess if you want to come and pick up square bales now, because usually I use a kicker and those fields are too small, you guys are happy to all show up to help me load those, because it won't be using a kicker wagon out there anymore. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other? How about online? I see, if you'd like to make a comment from online, if you could just raise your hand. I'm not sure how many folks we have online, but.
I just have a question. If we want to submit something by October 13th,
At least 3.
who would we send it to?
So we'll get there. There's some information on that. The question was, I'll just repeat it for Zoom, but the question was if you'd like to submit written comments, how to do so. So I'll just skip here to the upcoming next steps. So just reiterating, the public comment period started September 13th and it goes to October 13th. Today's the 28th, obviously. So we've got until the 13th of October to submit public comments. And here are the ways to view the environmental assessment document. So it's here at the town offices. It's also online at the address that's listed here. I'll say that this information is also posted on the town website under the public hearing section. And you can send comments by written comments, hard copy by mail to Liz Shipley at Federal Highway Administration here in Montpelier, or you can send them to Liz by email, and her email is listed here as well. I believe, is that information on the handout as well? Okay, there is a handout that also has the address and an email address on it. So with that, if there are no more comments, we can end the hearing. All right, thanks for coming out.
Recording stopped.